Greetings, Fright Nights and Monster Girls. I am Count Jackula,
And I'm Yogi Deva-Das.
and we just saw DC streaming services Doom Patrol. That was an extremely good show.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it's super good. I was a big fan of the late 80s, early 90s run of Doom Patrol, which is where this gets most of its inspiration from. Although not
Yeah.
entirely. It's not a direct adaptation, you know.
No, it's not a direct adaptation, but it very much is an embodiment of the mood and spirit of the Grant Morrison run of Doom Patrol.
Yeah, like a really good example of this being is that the Grant Morrison run of Doom Patrol did not have some of the characters were not there, and some of them are in different forms, but they are all forms that the characters felt like they should take.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the lineup in the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol was Mr. Robot, Crazy Jane, Rebus, and the Monkey Girl.
Dorothy Spinner?
Dorothy, yeah, Dorothy. Like that was who was most important in that run, and they had a rotating cast of like oddballs that would come in occasionally who were somehow involved with the leader of the group, Niles Calder.
Yes.
But Niles Calder wasn't much like in the show. Niles Calder is missing through large parts of the Grant Morrison run because something's supposed to have happened to him. Yeah, one of the things that I thought was some of the things that have been changed is that Rebus, there's a character in the Grant Morrison run called Rebus who is a rewrite of Larry Trainer.
Yeah, it's kind of like a reimagining of Larry.
Yeah, because the original Larry Trainer, he's just a pilot who has this thing inside him called the negative spirit, and for some reason he's got mummy wrappings on. So when Grant Morrison got a hold of him, he decided that what he was going to do instead is that he was going to make him transgender. He was going to make Larry Trainer transgender and make him a twin soul, like specifically a twin soul.
As Grant Morrison is prone to do.
Yeah. This is like
that.
This is like back in like 89, so everyone was like, "What?" So in this show, Larry Trainer, aka Negative Man, is gay. He was never officially gay in the comic. Not like straight up. It's just one of those, but it fits in so easily you forget that is the show's interpretation.
It makes total sense. Like they work it in so well. It makes so much sense when you really get into like the story of Larry Trainer and the duality between him and the negative spirit and everything. It works way too well.
Yeah. All the characters are essentially broken in some way or another. They all feel like freaks of nature, freaks of science, but really more freaks of nature than anything else, because you have Mr. Robot, who's a brain in a jar, and Mr. Robot in the show feels like he was lifted right out of the Grant Morrison run. Because I'm like, no, that's Mr. Robot. That's Cliff Steele, Mr. Robot. That is him.
He is amazing. Brendan Fraser is Cliff Steele. He just is. It's great.
Yeah, he has the same origin and everything. Used to be a race car driver, has a horrible accident, now he's a brain in a robot body. And he gets he's got a really bad temper. Like, he's a good way of putting it is that he's kind of, in many ways, he's kind of Hellboy as a robot.
I like to call him Mr. Fucking Robot because that is
Mr.
his
Fucking
favorite,
Robot.
That's his favorite word.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really liked about this show is that it is rated R.
Yes.
There's a lot of cursing, there's a lot of swearing, there's a lot of violence. Not so much on the nudity, but like that wasn't
That was not really a Doom
there's
Patrol
not really
thing.
any call for it. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
like it was an issue of Heavy Metal Magazine or something.
No, and actually, now that I think about it, something else that I love, and 'cause this isn't really a spoiler or anything, but something I really love about the character of Mr. Robot in this show is that he very much acts as I feel the mind of the common viewer is. Every time that you would say "what the fuck," he in script in show just screams "what the
What the
fuck."
fuck? And of course, and he's played by Brendan Fraser, so that just makes it even better. But yeah. He really is like for lack of a better way of putting it, like Mr. Robot, Cliff Steele really is the audience insert character. He's the
Yes.
audience point of view character, despite the fact that he's brain a robot in a robot. you know, um, so you've got Larry Trainer, Cliff Steele, Rita, who's the
Rita Farr.
original Elastigirl.
Yeah, Rita Farr, man. Yeah.
Yeah, Rita Farr. And in the original Doom Patrol, she was just a girl that could stretch. She could grow really tall. She could get really small. She could stretch her arms.
She was like Rubber Girl,
Yeah,
She
yeah,
was like,
yeah. Essentially, that was just it. That was all she was. In this one, they did something interesting, which is they associated each one of the Doom Patrol with a specific classic monster, like classic B movie monster.
yes,
Like Cliff Steele is Frankenstein, Larry Trainer is the Invisible Man,
mhm,
and Rita Farr is the Blob.
Blob.
Yeah, she's the Blob because they decided to straight up make her like a critter. So, much like Larry Trainer, she's drastically changed from what she was in the comic, but they did it to the point where it fits so flawlessly, you just didn't question it.
No, it's perfect. It's a little too perfect to be honest
Yeah,
with
yeah,
you.
yeah, it really is. Like, if you go back in the Grant Morrison run, you're like, wait, I thought Elastigirl was in this. No, she isn't. But they just perfectly moved her in. And although one of the characters that they didn't quite so perfectly slide in is that for some reason in this version of the Doom Patrol, Cyborg is a member. And that,
I simultaneously get it and don't get
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, I had the same problem. So you've got these misfits. You've got a woman who is essentially the Blob. You have a guy who has some sort of radiation spirit that lives inside of him and he's disfigured. You have a race car driver who is in a robot body, and you have a girl, Crazy Jane, who's like the last one, who is a girl who has 64 different split personalities, each of which has its own set of superpowers. You know, and then Cyborg. And you're like, well, he's like, a freak because he's been made into a cyborg. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the problem. The problem is that isn't he? I don't know how else to say it, but like, isn't he a little too cool to be here? Isn't he a little too upscale to be here? Like,
But then as the show goes on,
yeah, because he's just not as broken
ooh,
as the other characters. The other characters are severely broken. Because that's one of the things about Grant Morrison's Doom Patrols are all kind of broken. Like Crazy
yeah,
Jane has very poor control over her powers, plus she has dissociative identity disorder. You know, um, Cliff Steele has got this family he can't be a part of.
he's
You
got
know,
abandonment
he's
issues.
got abandonment issues, and he's a fucking brain in a jar essentially, and he just kind of hates it. Larry Trainer is in this show a gay guy from the 40s who
Who was
never accepted it.
who was also like who was also like like an American Air Force pilot. So he had that whole like thing of like, no, I have to like do for my country, and I have to like personify this macho kind of
Yeah,
thing even
yeah.
more so.
Yeah, he's very much a character torn in two different directions, which is why the show made him that way. Because like, oh, he's got the negative spirit, and then he's got his body, and they're like kind of pulling him in two different directions. And the
Hmm.
spirit is much more heroic than Larry is.
Yes.
The negative spirit is much more is everything that Larry isn't, or rather is everything Larry forces himself not to be.
Yeah, like throughout the show, the negative spirit. Like whenever something like this happens, a lot of times the negative spirit is the one who like is dragging him to like do something or goes out of his way to like to find the new member or to save the person or to lead to the thing. Like he very much like tries to push Larry into the direction that he feels he needs to go.
Yeah. And like a good inner spirit, he does have Larry's best interests at heart. But of course, Larry can't see this. And this creates the friction between the two of them. Rita, of course, she's a blob monster and who was a Hollywood starlet. And so she fucking, like, her whole thing is about her appearance, because she goes from being like, a slightly aged, like, the early 50s, mid 40s starlet to like the blob.
Yeah,
And she melts a lot, and especially when she's stressed out.
and oh my god, no, I love that so much. Like throughout this, like she maintains like poise and composure so much of the time, and yet when someone comes up to her and starts prodding at her and she gets like stressed out, like her like part of her face will start to like
Yeah, it
melt
just
into
starts.
like golden plastic, and then she does that whole thing of trying to hold up her face and be like, nope,
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 nope, nope.
nope.
It's not happening. And I liked it because like it it it's one of those things where I look at this and I'm like, you can do Clayface now. You can just put Clayface in a fucking thing now. He can be in a movie, he can be in a TV show. There's
Please.
no excuse. Seeing what they did with Rita Farr, I'm like, no, there's no excuse now. Just fucking do it. But back to Doom Patrol. She's awesome. All the actors are really good. Even the actors who played the characters even the guy who played Cyborg is really good, despite the fact that character just never quite fully integrates into the story. Or rather, he
No.
never quite. No, he fully integrates into the story. He doesn't quite fully integrate into the tone.
I think that's something. I think that's something that they're going to do in the more with the second season, because the second season has been stated as that they are going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's been lined up, and because that's something that's really interesting with this is that Cyborg doesn't fit in with the rest of the Doom Patrol, but throughout this, we see him breaking in his own ways. So we see a
Yeah.
breakdown of his original character. So I think that maybe that'd be something really interesting to see with the second season.
Yeah, because like in the beginning, he's pretty close to the Cyborg that everyone remembers from like Young Justice and Teen
Mm-hmm.
Titans and things like that, which is he's like, very like, no, we got to do this. Like he tries to be the hero's hero. But as the show goes on, it's one of those like, oh no, Cyborg, that shit don't work here. That shit don't work here. You are
That
going up against, you're trying to be the hero's hero, but everyone in here is the equivalent of Mitzelplick. That's not going to work. Like it is like, and unlike Mitzelplick, these guys play really mean. Like there is no
really mean,
blow
really
too
dirty.
low. Yeah. It's like, oh, do you have mother issues? Oh, let's twist the knife in that.
Oh my god, the villain of this show
The
does
villain
it
of the
so
show,
well.
Mr. Nobody, played
Nobody.
by Alan Tiddick. That's how you pronounce it, right?
I think
Tiddick.
so.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think, I don't know.
he's wonderful. He's absolutely fucking wonderful. And I was really amazed that they actually went ahead and did Mr. Nobody, because Mr. Nobody is a really hard character to translate into a different medium, because he is so based on the fact that he is in a comic book.
Yeah, he's kind of like the thing that you need to know about Mr. Nobody from the comics, especially from the Grant Morrison run of the comics, is that Mr. Nobody, well, first of all, like Grant Morrison is responsible for Mr. Nobody being this way, because pre Grant Morrison he was just he was just Ed Morden. He was just a 2-bit criminal, and it
Yeah.
was Grant Morrison who did the whole like this whole thing of like Nazi scientists reconfiguring him kind of thing. Like Grant Morrison is
Yeah.
entirely responsible for this.
Yeah, because
And
before villains didn't need that much. You just sort of like, oh, he runs into a magic item and now he's got these powers. Like that's just kind of how DC did it. It's like how the original the original Clayface, like he finds a magic artifact that turns him into mud.
that's it.
Which now that I think of it, they kind of gave Clayface's original origin to Rita.
Yeah, they kind of did, because
Yeah,
she
like
just like comes across a toxin or something. She just
yeah,
comes
she
across
comes
something.
across some weird toxin or some weird object that like turns her into this. You know?
Yeah.
And they just kind of let it. They're just like, look, all you need to know is she's a blob woman, okay? Like that's the important bit. Everything else will fill you in later, you know. But yeah, Morden is really hard to describe. He's basically a two-dimensional flat shape with eyes.
Yes.
You know, and I was like, how are you gonna do that in a show? But they start out with him. Like he is the first person that you meet in the show. So I was like, all right, so what are you gonna do? And what
Oh, they
they
did
have, yeah, yeah, they did it. They went all the way. And what they decided to do is that rather than just be this weirdo, this like kind of psychedelic villain, which is awesome in and of itself, they made him the literal omniscient third person narrator.
Yes, and it is absolutely glorious.
Yeah. Like it's that thing where like when he talks, when he narrates, it literally exists in the show. It exists within everything Morden does is Diogenes.
Yeah, and the reason he can do this is because, and this is something that they do kind of keep in the spirit of him from the comics, is that because he is, how to put it, he's kind of like villainous Deadpool in a weird way, where
Yeah.
he's very aware that he is just a character in a grander story.
Yeah,
And
but unlike Deadpool, he can actually manipulate reality.
exactly, and how he can do this, I think, because I've noticed this, that the only time that he does the narration bit is when he's in white space.
No, he actually did it. He actually does it in the beginning of the second episode.
Oh,
Remember their first, you know, one of the things is that the very first like previously on segment is narrated by Morden, and it carries into the episode to
well,
the
I
point.
tried.
Yeah, to the point where the person he's talking to is like, who are you talking to? And Mr. Nobody just responds, oh, you know, Grant Morrison fans, you know, malcontents, looky-loos, those who are curious, and about the 3 viewers we picked up after the farting donkey. And at that moment, I was like, no, the show's perfect. We're at the beginning of the second episode. It's already perfect.
It's glorious.
It's glorious. So the basic all right, so at this point we're going to allow ourselves to get into spoilers because it is a show and it's very hard to talk about a show while remaining super spoiler free.
Oh, episodic nature.
Yeah, oh episodic nature. It's just the way it is. So this is really about kind of the start of this particular version of the Doom Patrol. You know, we start with the villain. We then move on very quickly to Mr. Robot and Cliff and his origin. He's played by Brendan Fraser. He's really fucking good. And his whole thing is that he's just kind of a normal, like, kind of piece of shit race car driver. He's not the worst, but he's not like a shiny example of a guy.
No, he's
You
a
know, he
bit of a
cheats on his
philanderer.
he cheats on his wife. He kind of ignores his children. You know, like that kind of stuff. But he really he basically he doesn't want to be in this robot. Like Niles Calder, the Professor X of the Doom Patrol, for lack of a better way of putting it.
The chief.
The chief, yeah, like it just basically is like, huh, here's a brain, I'll put it in a robot. Because apparently that's how he do.
Well, you know, I'm just saying, you know, like when you're a government funded genius in a wheelchair, things happen.
Yeah,
You know.
things happen, and you can tell he's kind of Dick Professor X, but he's also
Yeah.
not as he's also like. But while Professor X always felt like very composed but was very empathetic, Niles Calder is a little bit more like kind of up his own ass.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's played by Timothy Dalton.
Excellently.
Yeah, excellently played by Timothy Dalton. Which I was amazed. I kept forgetting it was Timothy Dalton, and I usually can't do that. He's come a long way since the Bond days. I'll tell you that. Damn.
Yeah, no, it's no longer, hey, that's Timothy Dalton trying to do this. It's like, wow, that's Niles Calder.
Yeah. It's like, oh shit, Timothy Dalton. Hey, that's quality. I couldn't believe it. And the whole plot is that he gets kidnapped by his old arch nemesis, Mr. Nobody, for reasons that Mr. Nobody never explains. The one thing you got to understand is that he hates Niles Calder.
Yeah, he blames him for a lot of shit.
Yeah. But they never go into it, so it's sort of like the Monarch and Dr. Venture. Which you're like,
they just are nemesis.
They just hate each other. Yeah, they just hate each other. Is there a reason? Probably, but you're never gonna hear it. Like they don't tell you. So they decide that they need to find Niles Calder because they're crashing at his pad. Like they've known him for like 20, 30 years, and they feel like they kind of owe him, to go looking, despite the fact that they're not really superhero material.
No, they're not. In fact, the one who keeps trying to get them to be superhero material in this is Cyborg.
He's Cyborg. Like,
no, yeah. Come on, we got to team up, and they're like,
Yeah. So the first story ends up with the entire town that they live next to being sucked into the ass of a donkey.
Because quantum physics.
And one of the characters that you're introduced to in this donkey inverse farting moment is Ezekiel the cockroach.
Yes! I am ready, Father, to lead your...
Because, children, this show features a cockroach who believes himself to be the agent of premillennial dispensationalism.
Yeah, basically, he's here to bring about the apocalypse.
Yep.
And when Mr. Nobody starts doing his big shit, this cockroach just comes out of nowhere and is like, yes, at last, Father, I am here to commit to your will. Because he's a cockroach and he's going to be there at the end of the world.
So now that I think about it, why wouldn't cockroaches totally have this revelation?
I know. Like that's the dawn of their age, man. Yeah. I also love the fact that later on, this cockroach keeps showing up, and at one point he gets a follower, and the follower is a rat
named Admiral
Whiskers. And Admiral Whiskers doesn't talk, but they subtitle all his dialogue because he really just makes the one noise, which is squeak, squeak.
And he hates Mr. Robot.
And he hates Mr. Robot because in the middle of the first episode, Mr. Robot accidentally ran over his mother in the driveway.
And he blames
him. Yeah.
So he seeks revenge.
Yeah. So he thinks of nothing but revenge on Mr. Robot. And you're watching this thing, and I'm like, no, they nailed it. They nailed the weirdness of the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol. They completely fucking nailed it. The show's brilliant. I love it. Two things that also happen that I couldn't believe, because I'm like, no, they're not going to do it. There's no way.
They did.
They did. They did Danny the Street and Flex Mentallo.
Danny the Street
Whoa.
is my favorite. No, I
Danny the
love
Street's
Danny.
awesome. Danny the Street is awesome.
I want to live on Danny. I love Danny Street.
Yeah, so if you're like, what the fuck is Danny the Street? Okay, Danny the Street is a sentient street
That teleports.
that teleports, and it gathers people who feel, you know, outcast or alone, like, you know, misfits of the world, in particular queer people.
Yeah.
Danny the Street is the gay part of town that exists everywhere.
And Danny, because Danny is sentient.
And he's sentient, yeah.
Yeah, not he, they.
Oh, that's right.
Because Danny the Street is a genderqueer, non-binary street that uses they, them pronouns.
Nouns, yeah.
Danny's genderqueer, and they use non-binary pronouns.
Which is a specific line that is used. Because in the original Grant Morrison one, it's just a drag queen street.
Yep.
That's how it's explained. But in this one, they go like the extra mile, and I like the way they modernized it. You know,
but oddly enough, it makes so much sense.
It does.
Really,
it does.
What would you assume the gender of a street to be?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Because like, in order to make Danny the Street work in late '80s, early '90s parlance, like you had to go with queer. You know, because you didn't have it. You know, what other word did you have that was going to describe this? You know, and Danny the Street is constantly being hunted by this thing called the Bureau of Normalcy.
I fucking hate these guys, and I love.
Oh my god,
so much.
They're terrible. But the other thing that I love is that the Bureau of Normalcy comes from the Danny the Street plotline that Grant Morrison wrote, but they expanded their role in the universe.
Yeah, basically in the universe of this show, of this Doom Patrol show. Okay, imagine if all the white cisgender heteronormative like super Christian, we want everything to be the way it was in the 50s.
All the Jordan Peterson motherfuckers.
Yeah, if they all fucking got up off their ass and actually formed a covert government agency that is dedicated to eradicating what they view as aberrations, and abominations, then that's what the Bureau of Normalcy is.
Yep. And I love the one line that the one person on the one character on Danny Street says about them, which is like, they're the Bureau of Normalcy. Normalcy ain't nothing but a state of mind. And I'm like, oh, because it's a government agency, it's a state of mind. Oh,
and it's trying to control your thoughts, man.
Yeah. It's trying to get in, man. You know, but Danny Street was fucking amazing. The central character on Danny the Street, who kind of explains what Danny is and is the central focus of that episode, is a drag queen called Morally Degenerate.
Morally Corrupt.
Oh, that's right, Morally Corrupt. Yeah, Morally Corrupt.
Because Morally Corrupt is, I love her story arcs so much.
Oh, she's so great.
Because Morally Corrupt is this guy named Agent Morris, who used to be part of the Bureau of Normalcy. And they're like, okay, we've learned that Danny the Street is going to be here, so we're going to send someone like in plain clothes under deep cover to infiltrate. And it happens to be Agent Morris. And what happens is, as soon as Agent Morris gets on, Danny the Street and all of Danny's Dannisons.
Yeah, the Dannysons.
they welcome him with open arms, and through being there, he starts to accept the part of himself that's a big, fabulous queer drag queen.
Yes. And so he joins Danny and helps protect him. It's,
oh my god, the fucking line is great. There's like a part where, like, at the end of that episode where it's Morally Corrupt and like the Dannysons are like facing down like the agents of the Bureau, and one of them is Morris's old partner, and he just looks at me. He says, Darren,
Men as old as you really shouldn't throw shade. You might hurt your back.
Men as old as you shouldn't throw shade. You can hurt your back.
That's such a good line.
It's like utter
Such a good fucking
fabulousness and
line.
fabulosity incarnate stands before you. You better show some goddamn respect.
Yeah. Woo. Damn. No, it was super good. Super good. The other one that I couldn't believe that they brought in because I wasn't sure how they were going to explain him was Flex Mentallo.
But he was one of the most sympathetic.
Oh, he's so good. Thing. He's so good. Like, they found a dude that actually, like, the cover of, there's a cover of, like, the Flex Mentallo book, spin-off book that they did. They found a dude who looked just like that.
Like doing the Charles Atlas pose.
Yeah, doing the Charles Atlas pose and everything. And I'm like, I don't know where you found this guy. He's great.
He is a treasure.
He is a treasure. He needs to be playing this all the time. So Flex Mentallo, okay, here's the joke. So you know how psychics have like psychic waves that change reality, you know, that create telekinetic effects and do weird things. Okay, he has muscle waves. If he flexes his muscles, it creates waves that manipulate reality.
And he has achieved this by becoming so strong that he becomes cosmically aware.
Yeah. He is so fit. He has reached cosmic awareness. Just by flexing. And so I was like, how are you going to explain this power to people? You know, it's so weird. How are you going to explain it? But they just did it.
Yeah, they just showed it happening, and you just went, "Oh,
yeah." You just get it. You know, you're like, he flexes, something happens. You know, and you're like, oh, I guess that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Okay, you know, and I loved it because I was like, I don't know how to say it. It's the Doom Patrol adaptation we don't deserve.
I know.
We don't deserve this.
I was so confused because look, I'm pretty sure that when both of us heard that this was happening, and it was like on DC streaming and all that, we just kind of went, I don't know, because I don't trust. Look, I don't trust film and show adaptations of the works of people such as Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore, and Grant Morrison. I don't trust it. It's usually not good.
Yeah. Usually it's gonna not work. It's like, oh my God. Oh, so the guy who played Flex Mentallo, he's a regular television actor. He hasn't been in a lot of movies. In fact, I don't think he's been in any movies. Doesn't look like it. But
he's great in this.
Oh no, he is. He's really fucking good.
Actually, no. The casting choices in this were really interesting. Like, I keep forgetting the guy playing Larry Trainer, aka Negative Man, is Matt Bomer. I keep forgetting.
Yeah,
that's Matt Bomer.
Yeah. I know, right? You know, it looks like the two shows that you might have seen him in, this audience anyway, would either be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where he plays Tat, or Runaways, where he plays Kincaid.
Huh.
Yeah, his name is Devin Long, but he also goes by Devin Chandler Long. Not sure why he changed it, but whatever. You know, it's
the dude's amazing, and he just is Flex Mentallo now. He just is.
Oh yeah, he totally is. He totally nailed it. I was like, because like when I first like envisioned like someone bringing Flex Mentallo to the screen, the only person I could really think of was The Rock.
I get that.
I was like, well, you could theoretically do someone like Brock Lesnar, but I don't think he's a good enough actor. Whereas Devin Long here nailed it. He looked right, he behaved right, because the other thing about Flex Mentallo is that he is the hero's hero.
He's the hero of the beach.
He's the hero of the beach, and like he's super nice. He's the super good guy. He's a super goody two shoes dude.
In like the best way though.
Yeah.
Oh god.
I love the fact that they worked in the fact that he and Danny the Street were like best friends.
Yeah, no, that was great when they first pull up to Danny the Street, which by the way, when they're driving up to it, Larry's like, "Oh yeah, no, they'll explain it." Danny. Wait, didn't I tell you about the genderqueer sentient teleporting street me and Vic were hanging out on? and when they pull up to him, they pull up onto Danny the Street, and Larry's introducing everyone to Danny, and Flex comes out and goes, "Wait, Danny?" And then this smoke appears and it just spells out Flex. How are you?
Yeah. And like one of those little like inflatable noodle guys fucking
Yeah, no, it's fucking great because throughout this, Danny the Street talks to you, but they talk through like signs and like billboards.
Yeah, he talks through street signs, billboards, and other various things that you run into while you're on the street. And oh my god, when the dude first arrived, who becomes morally corrupt, first arrives on Danny the Street and looks at the dress shop. I don't know if you noticed. Did you notice it was called Danny the Street's Menswear?
Yeah,
it's like full of drag queen. It's full of drag queen dresses. Oh, another thing about Danny the Street is one of the people on it, background characters, one of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. The drag queen that looks like a nun. I was
actually
like, yes.
Actually, anyone who's out there who's a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race and drag queen professionality in general will notice that if you watch the episode with Danny the Street, which I believe is like the 14th episode, it's like a 13th, 14th episode.
Well, no, it's not that late in, but it's like episode.
It's like midway through.
Yeah, it's like episode like 12, I think, something like that.
Yeah, when the Doom Patrol actually pull up in their Doom Patrol bus, in the background there's a shop that has like street art. Like a street art mural on the window, and it's a fucking portrait of Bianca Del Rey.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. There's so much love that went into this show. And we can't look. At one point, they have to break into the Bureau of Normalcy, and as they're breaking out of the Bureau of Normalcy. Because this is where they capture and keep all these abnormal things imprisoned
while they're studying them before they destroy them.
Right. Turns out one of them was Larry Traynor, and Larry had escaped.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one that they find there is Flex. This is how they run to Flex Mentallo, because he's been captured and held in this place now. That's actually something that came out of the comic, because that's where they first find him. They hear, this name, Flex Mentallo, and they run to a guy who's been there forever, and he's got like hair on his face, and like he's got this huge beard. Like he actually looked like that when they discovered him in the comic.
Because the whole thing is that like Flex Mentallo was actually in his hometown in Kansas. He was like a local hero, and like in the 50s and 60s, and everyone loved him like a local Superman. And then the Bureau of Normalcy just fucking abducted him like the assholes they are.
Yeah, exactly. And he's kind of lost his memory because he's just been in this prison for so fucking long. And they find him here, he gets out, and then Mr. Robot's like, we can't just leave all these other people locked in these rooms. And so Flex just opens all of them. He just opens all of them, and this leads to the greatest line in the show.
We see from around the corner this young lab technician, this young blonde lab technician just running through, and he says, the most what the fuck thing I heard up until that point.
He picks up a phone, calls, and a guy in a general's uniform, like you would imagine you headed this kind of agency, picks up the phone. He's like, "What? General, the butts have escaped."
I understand. God be with you. Hangs up the phone, takes out his service revolver and looks at the people attending him and goes, "Gentlemen, it has been an honor."
Boom, and just blows his head off. Quick cut to carnivorous butts
on little stubby legs.
Stubby legs running forward, jumping up, like eating people's heads off.
It's like, okay, if you need to visualize this, they're little CG butts. They're little CG cartoon bouncy butts. They're like,
yeah,
little, and then they open like sideways piranha.
Yeah. Yeah. Sir, the butts are loose. I like how this it's beautiful. It's amazing. There is, how does one even
comprehend?
How does one even comprehend the wonderful thing which you have just seen? The funny thing is that when they first revealed the butts, where they opened the door and there's just this darkness with all these eyes, I thought they were setting up one of the Brotherhood of Dada guys, who's like a busted mirror with a million eyes.
Yeah. Because in the comic, the whole thing with Mr. Nobody is that now his origin is actually the same, both in the comic and in the show. His like what happens to him, but then in the comic, because he's like this weird amorphous two-dimensional like representational thing, he loses his fucking mind and he actually becomes the embodiment of Dadaism.
Yeah.
And he starts a band of villains who serve no inherent point except to destroy an already sick society with shock symbolism called the Brotherhood of Dada.
Yeah. And they're basically Mr. Nobody's goons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but they have like such characters as the Somnambulist, which is this girl who has superpowers, but only when she sleepwalks.
Then there's the Quiz.
The Quiz, yeah.
Who is a Japanese woman, and she has her literal thing is she has all the powers you wouldn't think that she would have.
Yes.
So the minute that you can't conceptualize of her doing something, she'll do it.
She could do it. So when you run into her, you have to immediately think of every superpower that you can come up with so that she won't have it. There's Agent ! The man who comes as no surprise.
No surprise.
He's like he barely does everything. He's there for one joke that they keep using, which is he shows up randomly. He will show up randomly, and then someone will go like, "Huh. For some reason, I'm not surprised that he's here. Who is that guy?" You know, like that's his only power.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, one of the others. There's also Love Glove, who is I don't know what his superpower is, but he's essentially like a fucking Yellow Submarine animation come to life.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Glove from Yellow Submarine.
Yeah. Except he looks like he looks like a fucking like beetle, but he's got like the big glove hands, and like you're like, what does he do? I actually don't know.
He just does shit.
He just does random shit, you know, like, oh God, the Quiz. Like, the one thing I do know about season 2 is apparently they have cast both Agent ! And the Love Glove.
That's amazing, because that was always that was like a big thing for me, was like, okay, now that we've like firmly established who Mr. Nobody is, we've established what he wants, and like, you know, all that kind of shit, as amorphous as it is, I'm like, please tell me the Brotherhood of Dada is becoming a thing.
Yeah, let's see. Oh God, who the first Brotherhood of Dada? Mr. Nobody, the Quiz, Sleepwalk, Fog, and Frenzy. Oh God, I never remember. What was Frenzy's deal? The only thing I remember about Frenzy is that he was a black guy with a top hat who had bicycles on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Um,
He could. Okay, so he was a random Jamaican guy. He had an accent. He was a random Jamaican guy with like bicycle wheels on his shoulders, and he had a top hat and shit like that. But his whole thing was he could turn himself into a giant cyclone.
oh, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right. He's a living tornado.
yeah. And
You
then
know?
there was also the Fog, who was a guy who could turn into fog, but then absorb you into his being.
Ugh. Right. That ain't so good.
No, this is kind of gross.
Yeah.
Also, like something I need to point out is like this season of this show, it's amazing, it's stupid, it's fun at the same time. It gets hard and dark and deep in a really good way sometimes. Like
Yes.
the whole thing with Crazy Jane in the underground.
Oh, Crazy Jane in the Underground was amazing.
Oh shit.
That was the way they did that for the way they conceived that for the show. Whoa.
It's kind of it was weird. It was kind of like the DC version of that movie Animas.
Yeah, it really
In a
was.
weird
But
way.
instead of just like one, there's like dozens of them.
Yeah, like, and she wrote the fact that the sisters archetype is there.
Yes.
The,
Yeah.
the three crones who guide you. To the answer.
Yeah. Well, like they definitely do this thing where like the underground, which is like Jane's mind.
Yeah, like the subconscious.
Yeah, her conscious and her subconscious. Like they definitely hint at the idea that if you go deep enough, you're not in Jane anymore. You are now somewhere else, and you don't want to go that far.
Yeah,
You know, because if you do that, then you don't know where you are at all.
it's kind of like collective unconscious territory down there.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's vast. That's almost infinite. So you don't want to go down there. You'll get lost. Man, Black Annis, the fucking
guardian of the way.
the guardian of the well. You know, like, oh geez, the guardian of the trauma.
Oh,
that
God.
that
no man may
pass. You know, and because of the negative spirit, like Mr. Robot has to go into Jane's own mind and fucking bring her back out, and he meets Black Annis, who beats the fucking shit out of him, and you know, Mr. Robot has to go, I'm not a man. I was. I don't know what I am anymore. And he has to like, because in Jane's head, he is Cliff Steele. He's a normal dude. Because that's kind of how she sees him.
which is really sweet.
Yeah, which is really sweet, you know. But in order to get past Black Annis, he has to literally rip his own flesh off and be Mr. Robot. And it's a nice gnarly effect because you're watching Brendan Fraser literally tear himself apart, and in a practical effect, it's really good. You know,
a lot of the practical effects and a lot of the practical and special effects in this are all pretty damn good.
Oh yeah. They all do the job, man. They're all excellent. Like I give this whole show the horns. Like I fucking loved it. Like if you were a fan of either the Grant Morrison or Gerard Way run of Doom Patrol, either one of those runs, you're gonna love this show.
Watch this.
It's for
you.
It's absolutely for you. I can't say enough good things about it. It's just excellent. Oh, and if you're a fan of some like deep cut Doom Patrol, Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man makes an appearance.
Played by Alec fucking Mappa.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Fucking the Baron von Fuchs puppet show.
Yeah. Oh my god. The Nazi puppet show. Whoa.
And then the war broke out, and suddenly my human bioengineering ideas didn't seem so crazy anymore. Oh, not in the brochure, but okay.
I don't feel like being dissected by a Nazi fuckhead, so I say we bounce. You know?
It was so good.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
it's a really good show. Can't wait for the second season. You
I
know?
know. And now I think about it, favorite special effect in this show is in episode 15. The final episode involves two digitally
Oh my
animated
god.
200-foot characters.
Oh my god. Just as you think, oh, I guess we're done? We are
No,
not done. They got
we are not.
one last fucking crazy ass trick to pull out of their sleeve. And it's amazing. It's fan fucking tastic.
And
You know,
it leads to the greatest line.
it does. It does. And one of the things I really liked about the ending is it ends the way like a movie like this in the 90s kind of would have ended. Like, it was so fucking 90s, I half expected Smash Mouth to start playing.
Well, I mean, dude, okay, so in like the last episode where they have to go back on Danny the Street, like to ultimately end the season and defeat Mr. Nobody and save the everything.
Yeah.
What is playing as soon as they get on Danny the Street? But Chumbawamba's I Get
Chumbawamba.
That Now.
Yeah. I like the fact that the other thing that's really interesting. Yeah, Tub Thump. The other thing I love is that Mr. Nobody wins. He wins. He gets his way. He
and sinks into existentialist depression.
Yeah. He sinks into existentialist dread. He's like, oh God, what do I do now?
There's a fucking scene of him just like after he wins the fight, just sitting on the toilet, like drinking himself like into a stupor while reading like a fashion magazine. He's just
reading reviews of the show that you are currently watching.
Yeah, oh my god, I fucking love it. He just like reads, he's just like a subpar villain with a cookie cutter view of revenge is right. There's that fucking no. There's that fucking scene after they get Flex Mentallo. And they get everyone sorted out, and they all agree, okay, we have to go for Niles. We have to go for the chief. We have to save him from Mr. Nobody. And then just a big pause sign happens, and it zooms out. And Mr. Nobody is watching it on a tablet, covered in Doom Patrol swag.
Oh, yeah.
He's just like, finally, a superhero team I can get behind.
He's such a beautiful asshole, you know.
I love him so much.
God, like this is it. This is officially the start of the '90s nostalgia wave, and it is the stuff that I knew it was going to be. It wasn't going to be, you know, it wasn't going to necessarily be things like Power Rangers. It was going to be things like Doom Patrol, Swamp Thing, fucking, you know,
yeah,
like
man,
they're talking about. They're supposed to be doing a Hellblazer show again.
Yeah, man, like
just a straight up Hellblazer show.
Like how to put it? Like what you being a Gen X person, what the last like 10, 15 years for you have been when it comes to like the period nostalgia wave.
Mm-hmm.
It's now that for people like me who were 90s kids now. Like hitting that now. It's really weird.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like alternative comics in the 90s were huge. I can't describe how fucking influential they were. It's nuts. Like, you got to realize this. Without that wave, there's no Alan Moore and there's no Neil Gaiman. Because they literally came out of it. You know, they pretty much kickstarted this that wave of weirdness.
Yeah.
You know, there's no Grant Morrison without Alan Moore, definitely. You know, there's, you know, the work of Jamie Delano kind of has no reason to exist without this stuff.
A lot of like the later Warren Ellis things, like
Warren Ellis would have had no foothold. He wouldn't have been able to get in a foothold because this is the kind of stuff that he loves. He was like part of the last. He was like the last gasp of the original wave of that kind of comic storytelling.
You know, and now we got the whole like, and then now like we got the whole fucking like Good Omens thing coming on, man. That's
yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. Well, like it's interesting because I love it because it's like, okay, so what was really big in the 90s? And I'm like, alternative comics and occultism. And right now, most media centers around those things. You know, and they came together in some weird ways. Like that's Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I didn't expect that.
Yet we all loved it.
Oh, yeah, it's excellent. So anyway, we're getting a little off track now, so I think we should end it here. Yogi, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Yogi_Deva-Das. You can also find me on YouTube. Just look up Western Guy with Vedic Guys. It's my channel. It's my show. I talk about Hinduism and Eastern spiritual and philosophical components.
And you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and of course, I stream every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and again every Sunday at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we hope to see you there, where we talk about things like this. We talk about things like Doom Patrol. We talk about things like occultism, sexuality, Satanism, Hinduism, whatever. You know, from a very pro standard. We're not one of those. We're not one of those conspiracy channels. Although sometimes we do feel like they're watching.
Hey, man! Remember, normalcy is just a state of mind.
You know. All right, Ave Satanas, Disco Inferno. Keep watching fucked up movies, y'all.